and welcome to the Untranslatable Travel Tips. And today we will be discussing the City of Light, or the City of Love, depending on who you ask. Paris, the capital of France. And I think it's safe to say that Jared and I are not necessarily experts on France or Paris. I would say Jared has a lot more experience than I do. But we have been there, we got some opinions, and we are happy to share them with you today. So we hope you enjoy this travel tips episode. You get some insight on what to do, what to see, what to avoid, and some budget tips for France as well, for Paris, sorry. So without further ado, my buddy, what's going on, Jared?
Hello, that's right. You know, the thing about the Untranslatable Travel Tips is it's not all about just the cold hard facts of a city or the things to see or not to see. You know, there's an art to this too, and I think that's important. First off, you know, let me hydrate myself with a glass of French red wine.
Oh, there you go.
But anyway, please, everyone, before we get into it, spread a little love. Follow us on Twitter, Untranslatable1, the number 1. Follow us on Instagram, Untranslatable Podcast. Chad, do you have any pictures from any times that you've spent in France?
I'll have to peruse Facebook and see if I can find some. But
I was thinking the same thing.
Yep.
I've been there. By the way, Chad claimed I might be more of an expert. Let's be clear. He's right. I've been there, probably 300% more than you. You've been there how many times?
Once.
All right, well, do that math, everyone. I've been to France a lot, not Paris a lot. I've been to Paris a few times. Few is 3? I don't even know. I assume it's 3 or 4.
I think it's 3,
like
yeah. Sounds about right.
And by the way, 5-star reviews. Spread a little love on iTunes and Stitcher. And you can, hit us up on our email, untranslatablepodcast@gmail.com. Tell us where you'd like to see us do travel tips on. When I say see, I do mean see. I mean, you can hear us too, obviously.
That's true.
But see, because we're on YouTube.
Absolutely. Well, Jared, let's get into it because there's a lot to discuss today.
I'd say so.
So my experience in Paris, I went there for 6 days back in 2012. So it's been a little while. I'm sure Paris has changed quite a bit since I was there. And I actually turned 21. A little fun fact for you, Jared. Turned 21 while I was in Paris.
Did you have a good birthday?
It was all right. It wasn't too bad. Had some really good French wine. Did a lot of sightseeing. Got lost a few times. Definitely got flustered by the lack of helpfulness from the Parisians. Not going to lie. Some of that's on me, though, I guess, because I don't really speak very much French. So one early tip I would give everybody, if you're going to Paris, learn some basic stuff in French, because I think
that calf out of that heifer.
I think that'll, really pay a lot of dividends for you. And I've heard from people who do speak French that, Paris is a wonderful city if you speak the language fluently, because, you can get to know the locals a little bit and stuff like that. Whereas for me, the language barrier was definitely a problem in some cases. Like I said, I got lost. Eventually found my way, but it was not ideal, and the Parisians were not as accommodating as other places where I've been when there have been difficulties. So just keep that in mind. Maybe my experience is just me, I don't know, but yeah.
Wow.
What?
Chad? Just like a solid roast real quick. And they're like, listen, for me it's terrible, and I hate this place, and it's probably terrible, but hey, if you had a good time, good for you. There you go.
Yep.
Enjoy yourself.
Spread the love, Jared.
I spread a little love. Shout out to the clock. I don't know if I fully agree with you.
Okay. That's all right.
I was thinking about it, and I don't know if it's Paris that I struggle with, or it's the tourism I struggle with.
Okay.
Because I think it's fair to say objectively that Paris is a beautiful city.
Absolutely. Gorgeous.
I mean, that goes without saying. Mm-hmm. But I think it's not a problem. It's not even the city. It's just it's like tourism on steroids.
That's true.
And in my experience, and I've been taken around Paris by people that know nothing about Paris, by people that know stuff about different aspects of Paris. Like food, for example. My dad is a big food person, foodie, I guess you'd call him, but he's too old to be called that, I think, because his Instagram game is weak, even though he has an Instagram.
No way. He does? Oh, wow.
Yeah. He just doesn't post enough. But, I mean, he's also, who cares? He doesn't need to. Do whatever you want. It doesn't matter. It's the overwhelming just tourism that's there. And whenever I've gone by, I've been taken around by natives, people that, are foodies, as I was mentioning, people that know nothing about Paris. Every time it seems like the overwhelming amount of tourism can't be avoided.
Especially in certain parts of Paris.
Partially on me, by the way. Just throwing that out there.
Because you were the tourist.
Yeah, but I think maybe I don't think I've ever been to Paris. I've been to Paris a lot, but I don't think I've ever been in a situation where I've sort of been the lead, I think that's part of the problem.
Hasn't,
But I've also gone with people like my family who, tend to avoid pure tourism.
Sure. Yeah, the just the stereotypical Eiffel Tower, Mona Lisa.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Have you seen the Mona Lisa?
I have not. I didn't make it to the Louvre. I did go to Versailles, though, which is a little bit outside of Paris. We had to take the train there. But it was awesome. Versailles was really something to see. The gardens, the Room of Mirrors, was really something else.
All right.
But yeah, there's a lot of great must-see attractions in Paris, though.
I don't mean to switch anything up on you on the fly, but I want to do a quick... You came in hot, and I respect it. We're going to keep that heat going real quick.
Let's keep the heat on.
And we're going to talk about the 7 Paris tourist traps to skip. And we're going to have a serious conversation about these.
Okay, let's do it.
And then we'll end with some positivity about Paris. Because, once again, it is a beautiful place.
It is.
Spread a little love. All right, the 7 Paris tourist traps to skip and what to do instead. Number 1, what do you think?
It's probably the Mona Lisa, right?
No. The number 1 tourist trap to skip is going to the top of the Eiffel Tower.
Okay.
And I would agree with that. I would say going to the top of the Eiffel Tower is the number 1 thing to not do in Paris. There's a long line. Mm-hmm. There's usually only one elevator in operation. There is never not a line. It's the Eiffel Tower.
Right.
And it's not shockingly high. Yeah, you get a good view of Paris. But if you have a computer or a phone, just go to Google Maps. It's amazing what you can do. You can walk through the entire city.
There's a good little budget tip. Don't even go. Just use Google Maps.
Tourist trap number 1, going to the top of the Eiffel Tower.
No,
I think it is 100% worth it going to the Eiffel Tower, though. Yep. And I think it is... Yes, it's a tourist quote-unquote trap because it is one of the biggest tourist attractions in the world.
Right.
But I think it is cool to see for some reason. Like there's nothing really significant about the construction of it. It's not like, wow, this is like a pyramid. How did this get made?
Right.
How was this put here?
Right.
It's like, no, it's pretty clear how this is made if it's not like a artifact, even though it's old. I get that,
right.
But it's like, yeah, I don't, but I still think it's worth seeing. There's something about it.
I would also add, Jared,
and it's easy to get to.
Very easy. And I would also add, though, that you should see the Eiffel Tower at night because they usually illuminate it. It's gorgeous. Yeah. I've seen it during the daytime and also at night. It was so gorgeous at night. If you're there with a loved one, very romantic little spot to sit down, have some wine or something.
I would agree.
Yeah, Jared would definitely agree. And the other thing I would avoid
too... It's a great picnic location.
Exactly. The other thing I would avoid, too, if you're near the Eiffel Tower, is they have all these little Eiffel Tower keychains and all this stuff. It's way overpriced. I get it. I get it that people want souvenirs, but I just would not buy a souvenir right there.
No. Here's a new rule at the Untranslatable Travel Tip series. Rule number 1: never buy a souvenir from a souvenir shop that's like a gift shop or tourist shop kind of thing.
Yep.
I would say that's rule number one. You can get it for a quarter of the price, probably on Amazon.
Yeah, most likely. Yeah.
So that's rule number one at the Untranslatable podcast. Forget the travel tips. Don't buy actual tourist attractions from gift shops or tourist shops. Anyway, back to Paris.
Number 2.
Tourist trap number 2. Now this is a Seine, which is the river that goes through Paris, dinner cruise.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's obvious.
That's
obvious.
That already just sounds expensive.
Yeah, that's obvious. Don't get food on a boat. Okay? And that even goes for cruises. Don't go on cruises.
We can agree to disagree on that one. Cruises are great. But anyways, number 3.
Tourist trap number 3. Going to the Louvre just for the Mona Lisa.
Yeah, there's a lot of
obviously
amazing
100%.
art at the Louvre, for sure.
Now, the Louvre is gigantic, first of all. And second of all, the old cliche about the Mona Lisa is not that big. It's a cliche because it's true.
Right.
And I've seen the Mona Lisa relatively closely. Definitely not worth it, especially since
You wait for
you
hours
get the urge
in the
to
line.
want to... I didn't have to wait,
Okay.
but you get the urge to want to fight people all the time.
Just to see it?
Because there's no such thing as personal space.
Right.
And it is like, do you understand what art is? Like, this only reason you're taking a picture of this is because you happen to enjoy Tom Hanks in the movie The Da Vinci Code.
Right.
All right. Paying top dollar for a macaroon. Yeah, macaroons aren't fancy in France.
No, definitely not. And you can get really good ones in the further out quarters of Paris. I was taken to one that was a bit further out. I forget what quarter it was now.
A McCafe is probably what you're thinking of.
Could be. You never know. But yeah, so but yeah, you can get macarons very, very cheap if you don't go to the very touristy places right in the center of the city.
The next one, eating along the Champs-Élysées. Now, I'll say this. I don't know if they add this in, but the Champs-Élysées is, a famous road, giant, essentially shopping road at this point, and club road as well. Leads to the Arc de Triomphe. Now, let me ask you this. Do you think it's worth I mean, obviously eating along the Champs-Élysées, we're not amateurs here at the Untranslatable podcast. Don't eat on a major tourist street at all. Especially one like that as popular as this one. But is it worth walking down that street? Is it worth seeing the Arc de Triomphe?
I would say yeah. I think if it's your first time in Paris, I would definitely suggest it.
Okay.
But I don't know what your thoughts are on that, Jared. But I would say, I mean, it's cool to see. It's great for people watching. And I think the Arc de Triomphe is also pretty cool to see.
Whenever I went to Paris, I used to like to go to the Virgin Mobile store, I think is what it was. And
Okay,
it was essentially
interesting.
just a giant, like, movie, music, kind of electronic store. I guess you'd call it a Best Buy in France. I don't know why. The tourist trap number 6, Rue de la Huchée. No, Rue de la Huchée. Rue de la...
I'll take your word for it. There's no way I can pronounce it. Anyways.
It's one of the oldest streets in Paris, but unfortunately it's now just a glut of souvenir shops and crappy gyro joints. And here at the Untranslatable Travel Tips and Podcast, we say no to souvenir shops.
That's true.
Never having an authentic meal in Paris. Never having... So, it's a shame you can visit Paris without ever... You just have to... I think the thing about the food is... I think another kind of rule that we have here is avoid the quote-unquote city centers for the authentic meals.
Oh, definitely.
And also, I think here's another tip I'm going to give with the authentic meals. When you say authentic meal of any sort of culture, at least have a broad understanding of what that means.
Absolutely.
You know? So know what you should at least... Just Google it, See authentic pictures and... of meals, and know that any sort of cuisine from any country does not come from the city center. Like I mean, obviously there's great food in these places.
You're getting the watered down tourist version of it for top dollar.
Right. Because That's just how industry works, and it's a shame.
Yeah.
But do you have anything to add to that list, Chad?
That's a good question. I'm not really sure.
Now, I would say definitely visit the Notre Dame now. I mean, come on.
Right.
Slipping on gator piss.
Let's see here. Anything else? I don't know. I would say walk along the river. And there's also a lot of really great like artists and like, obviously it's probably touristy as well, but for me it was cool to just check out watching them paint and doing stuff like that. The cool thing about Paris is there's just tons of cultural events, right? So there's lots of great live music. You have, art galleries other than the Louvre as well. There's just so many great things to do to see there. And, but I would say that list covers it. One thing though, that I would definitely recommend is if possible, try to go to Paris with someone who's been there before or is a local, because at least for me, I had a lot of difficulties trying to get around Paris using the metro because
Did you go by yourself?
No. I had a person there with me helping me. Had they have not helped me out.
Did you hire this person?
No, I was visiting my ex-girlfriend.
Oh. Okay.
So she helped me, get around everywhere and everything. But just walking around with her, it was super confusing trying to. It's not straightforward like at least the other cities we've covered. Berlin, it's very simple. Prague, it's very simple. In Paris, for me at least, the metro system was really complicated. There's all these weird tunnels you got to go down, and you have to know which tunnel and all this stuff. It's crazy.
Do you think the person you were with had any influence on your feeling on the city?
Probably, yeah.
And I ask this because, did you know, Chad? I know I'm sure you would never guess this. Paris is one of the top tourist cities in the world.
I never would have known, Jared.
It's so according to some website that I'm sure is 100% reputable, it is the number 3 tourist attraction as of 2018, I believe it was.
Okay.
And it had 18 million international visitors. That it's 0.97. It's like, okay, I'll just say 18.
Right.
We'll really cut this down, and then I'll tell you why I did it.
Got to be precise, Jared.
Do you know what 2 cities are in front of that?
No idea.
Just take a guess. One's in Europe, one's not.
Maybe Berlin?
No.
Or London?
Yes.
Okay.
And the other one's not.
New York.
No.
Really? Okay.
This is actually surprising. You won't get this, so I'll just tell you.
Okay.
Because this is travel tips. We don't have time to dilly-dally. Bangkok.
Oh, cool. Interesting. Okay. Nice.
So you don't seem to enjoy Paris. You seem to have had a troublesome time, we'll say, with the locals. You seem to have a troublesome time with people that were living there that you seem to know for some reason or another. But I will
say this though, Jared. I think the other difficulty for me was she was studying abroad and was taking classes. And so during the day, I was alone wandering around Paris with the,
That seems great.
It's great until you get lost or until you need something.
See.
And, they were not really willing to speak English with me. And I made the mistake of trying to speak German with them. So also don't do that in Paris. That won't make you any friends either. So, yeah.
So my question to you is, would you be willing, one, to go to Paris with, say, someone like me, someone that you've experienced the untranslatable travel tips in real life with?
I will say this. I think you are.
Or would you be willing to go back by yourself?
I wouldn't go back myself. I would only go if it was like with you.
Okay, because I feel like I feel like it would just. Okay, we'll get to that later. The reason I'm asking this is because really what I want to ask you is, why do you think Paris is consistently such a winner as far as tourism goes? Why?
I think obviously it's a lot of the sites and the attractions. You got the Eiffel Tower, Versailles, the Louvre, all this stuff. I would say Paris is definitely heavily romanticized in all sorts of different movies. I would say that's another reason. Obviously, the history of the city. It's a very historic city. If you're a history buff, Paris is a great place to visit. Probably the food as well. I'm not a foodie, nor am I a good cook, nor do I have the more sophisticated palate like you or one of our guests, Ravi, on our regular episodes has. But I've heard it is one of the best places if you want really exquisite cuisine. So maybe that's why.
But it's also, because it's such a gigantic powerhouse of tourism, it's also one of the easier places to get, I don't want to say scammed, because that has such a negative, aggressive connotation, but to get, just not to get that real goodness.
Right.
So, all right, there's that. We're going to go through the most visited tourist attractions in the world. Not in the world, excuse me.
In Paris.
I was looking through the most visited tourist attractions in the world. The top 50. Paris had 6 of them.
Oh, wow. Okay.
The Eiffel Tower.
Yep.
Notre Dame,
Yep.
shout out. Sacré-Cœur Basilica, Paris. You know that church at the top of the hill.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Musée du Louvre.
Yep.
Obviously,
Yep,
the
the
famous
Louvre.
Louvre Museum. Palace of Versailles, which is technically not in Paris,
Right.
but anyone that's not coming from France would probably come into Paris to get there.
Yeah.
So I'm claiming it. Another one I'm claiming that's technically not in Paris because you can't get the kind of space in Paris. Disneyland.
Where's that?
It's just slightly outside of Paris.
Okay. Did you go there?
Maybe 30 minutes to an hour. No, I'm saying, no, of course not. No, but by the time I was living in Germany, which is the first time I went to Paris, first my parents were like, "We're not going to Disney. You crazy?" And I don't like Disney.
Okay.
No.
All right. Fair enough.
Don't even give me. No, I'm kidding. I don't hate Disney, but it's just not my thing.
Right.
I want roller coasters or nothing. And I
Fair
mean
enough.
real roller coasters.
So yeah.
But yeah, no, it's slightly outside of Paris. Sorry,
Right.
I was thinking about Disney. And I wouldn't probably want to go to. Well, maybe I'd go to the Louvre. I always say that wrong. And I'd go to the Eiffel Tower.
Okay.
The Sacré-Cœur Basilica is cool for an Insta pic, I guess.
Okay.
But I mean, the actual church is nothing special, and it's. I will say it was interesting to see there were a bunch of people that were like selling stuff, and the cops would come through periodically, and all their stuff they would be selling would be on like a large, let's say, rug or essentially,
Right.
and they just wrap it up and walk away, and as soon as the cops will leave, they just put it right back out.
Oh, that's
and I was
crazy.
like, it's cute this game you guys play because
Right.
everyone knows what's happening here.
Sure, of course. Well, Jared, I think there's a lot of potential of great things to see in Paris, but you do need to be aware of things and watch out for certain things. And the number one thing I would say is, at least me personally, do not go to Paris without knowing some basic French phrases. I would say this for almost any place, though. I just think it's courteous, it's polite. If you want to be a cultured traveler, learn some words and phrases in the language. Check out
Bonjour,
Untranslatable. Bonjour. Check out Untranslatable
Comment allez-vous?
podcast. Huh?
Comment allez-vous?
Where do you live? No, what does that mean?
What's your name? I think.
Okay. Je suis Chad. Je suis Shed.
Je suis nah. He's a je m'appelle Chad. I think.
But I am also Chad. Am I not?
Yeah, but do people say I am? Like, you couldn't say ich bin Chad.
Yeah, you can.
In German.
Of course you can.
Okay.
You've never
I don't know.
you've never
Listen.
heard someone. Anyways, we're getting off topic here. We need to.
Oh yeah, maybe I have. Listen, I'm no French or German expert, so I'm not even an English expert. Let's be honest. So let's talk about the hidden gems. Just a couple hidden gems, real quick.
Okay.
A lot of them are park based. Interestingly enough.
Okay.
A lot of park based. And I say that just because I want you to keep that in mind as what they're, this is what you're going to one of the most expensive tourist cities for, parks. Obviously they're good restaurants, but I think for that once again, I think my tip for the restaurants is know what you're looking for. And I don't just mean that French people sometimes like tartare. Like, internet is good these days, and I would never dare give a food recommendation in a giant, city like that.
Right. Yeah, me either. And I'm sure it changes a lot as well. And yeah. Did you try escargot when you were in Paris or France?
No, I'm a coward, Chad.
Okay. Yeah, me either.
Did you?
No, me either. No, I did not. But yeah, what are some other hidden gems? So you got the parks. What else?
Yes. I'm trying to think. I just had it in my head, and I'm losing it. I would say an interesting area to go to, and once again, don't go inside, but an interesting area to walk through, is the walk from where what was the museum? I just said what it was. The
Louvre?
Sacré-Cœur Basilica.
Oh,
That's what
okay,
I meant.
the church.
Mm-hmm. To like the Moulin Rouge area is interesting, and I think it's cool to walk through. And I will say this: I did go to cool bars in Paris, but none of them were anywhere close to. That's the only thing with Paris, though. Like, I don't know the names. I don't even think the people that took us there know the names. But it's just like I don't know how to explain it, But I also don't think it's worth it.
Why is that?
I think it's overpriced.
Okay.
I think if you want to go to France, there are a lot of cities that are way more manageable with similar, if not more, sort of legacies of history. Mm-hmm. I think there's places with better food. I think it's easier to find food when you're not in the big cities. And listen, we're talking about Paris here. So when we say big, not as big cities,
Paris
I'm not talking
huge.
about I'm not talking about some like village that no one's ever heard of. Like there's like Nice or there's Dijon. I've been there. Provence. These are real cities, for example, in France that I have enjoyed very much. Shout out to my parents that cultured me as a child. But I don't think I think it's to me it's no different than almost like and I hate to say this because there is the history and there is a level of beauty to it just because of the history. But it's almost just like a European New York. There, I said it.
Oh wow, that's a bold statement right there. Very bold statement.
It's just like it's so I don't know.
Anyways, let's move on and discuss a couple other things of what to watch out for. So as I said,
okay.
I think the language is important. Pickpockets for sure, especially in the metros. And the other thing that wigged me out big time when I was in Paris is make sure you get in everything, your backpack, everything inside the metro, because when those doors shut, they shut and they don't reopen. So you have to be very
That's the
careful.
same in London, by the way.
Is it? Okay. Good to know. Mm-hmm. Good to know.
In the tube.
Right. And then as we've mentioned numerous times already this episode, I wouldn't suggest eating in the tourist areas. I also would avoid any chain restaurants. I mean, if you're in Paris, try the local cuisine. Don't be, don't be going to McDonald's in Paris. Don't be getting the quarter pounder with cheese, Is that, right?
What? What's that?
From Pulp Fiction?
No, I got that. I was playing along with you.
Oh, okay. My bad. Anyways, other
you
than
mean the Royale with cheese?
Royale, that's right, the Royale with cheese.
You didn't even remember what it was.
I messed it up. But yeah, other than that, though, I mean, Paris to me seems very safe. Just be mindful of pickpockets, and
do you think it feels safe?
Yeah, I never felt.
Yeah, you never felt. I don't know if I would agree with that.
Okay,
I would say it's safe. But I'd say it is like it's not. Don't mistake it for like a quaint city though. You know?
Sure. It's
like if you're going back from somewhere late at night, I would say you'd have to be more aware of your surroundings than say
Prague.
I don't know, just a smaller city, a Chomutov, for example.
Sure.
And not even just a pickpocketer. Yeah, obviously if that's but I think just in general, no, I would say. I'm not saying that you're going to get murdered or anything, but I would say in any sort of general big city, you always going to kind of keep more of an eye out.
Absolutely, yeah. Don't make yourself a target, and just be safe, be smart, Absolutely. So now, Jared, let's talk about where to stay because Paris is gigantic and there's a lot of different options. Now, if you're going to Paris and you want to ball out, I would say you should stay in the first quarter or the first, I just love this word, arrondissement. I don't speak much French, but I think that's right. And so the first arrondissement is where you can find the Louvre. Just a heads up, I'm gonna be saying that word a lot the next couple of minutes, so prepare yourself. But
when I come see you soon, you're gonna be like, "Hey, come to my arrondissement."
Yeah, you want to come hang out at the arrondissement? But yeah,
arrondissement.
So anyways, the first one though is where you can find a lot of the big tourist sites, right? You can find the Louvre. It's in this area, and it's just a great place as well if it's your first time in Paris and you want to ball out a little bit.
How much is a hotel?
Well, so a mid-range hotel. So for example,
Mid-range.
you have Hotel Prince Albert Louvre, which is 130 euros per night, which really isn't.
That's not
That's
terrible.
not too bad. Now luxury though.
I mean, it's expensive,
Right.
But it's not by no means terrible, especially for sounds like to me prime location.
Right. A lot of these though, it looks like the fancier ones start anywhere from 300 a night plus. So just be aware of that.
But it also depends on timing.
Of course.
Which, by the way, maybe look forward to the future episode that has to do something with that. Just saying, I don't know, whatever.
That's true.
Throwing it out there.
That is true.
Keep that in mind.
But yeah, so the first quarter or first arrondissement is great for all the famous landmarks, which is really awesome, and it's perfect if it's the first time you've ever been there. However, voted the best neighborhood in Paris for food and restaurants, Jared, is the 11th quarter or the 11th arrondissement, which apparently this is the neighborhood for foodies located just outside the central quarters. And with cheaper rent, many of the city's up-and-coming chefs have set up shop in this area, generally catering to a more local crowd. Prices are relatively more affordable, and the focus is more on relaxed eateries versus like stuffy, fancy cuisine, in these tourist places. So that's really great. Now, if you are trying to go to Paris, Jared, to party, because let's be honest, I know how much you love to party, especially going to clubs. You want to go to, I believe it's pronounced Marais. It's Marais. You don't pronounce the S, right?
No.
So it would be Marais, I think.
Yeah, there you go.
And so this is a great place for bar hopping. There's a lot of different places that you can find everything from like secret speakeasies to very chic cocktail lounges. So it's
very what? Cocktail lounges, Chad?
chic. How do you say it?
No, it's just I've never heard you say that word ever.
So yeah.
I will say this. That's another good thing about Paris. If you want to get like I think might be why it has something to do with why it's one of the top European cities to visit every year consistently. And forget European cities in the world, pound for pound, the LeBron James of tourist attractions is because much like LeBron James, you get everything in one, You get nightlife and not just clubs, but there are legitimate cool bars there too.
Absolutely.
You get sites. I mean, you get multiple castles, you get churches, cathedrals,
Everything.
rivers,
Everything all in one.
art, some of the greatest art in the world. You get food. French people have good food or so. I've yet to find it, but I've heard they have good food. Crepes are good. Oh man. And they have whatever else I missed. They have Disneyland.
Right. Oh, they have everything.
And so if you're trying to get like a snapshot of what I guess Europe is, maybe there's no better city that can encompass that than Paris.
Yeah, could be. Well, Jared, if you want to experience all this, how long do you think people should stay? I would say a week. I think if you really want to see everything,
say.
I would say a week.
No. I'm not even going to say everything. I'm going to say figure out what it is you're interested in. And adjust your time, not adjust your timeline to that, but and focus on that and figure out how, like, what are the main points of that you want to see. But I would say a week too. But I would say that a week is doing a disservice because there's no way you'd even see all of the tourist attractions.
Of course
in a
not.
week.
No. But if you really want to get a good snapshot, I would say a week. Definitely no less than 3 or 4 days for sure.
Yeah, what do you just waste? I mean, that's like a layover.
Right, yeah.
Which, if you have WoW Arrow, that might have been your layover.
But yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, I was there for 6 days and definitely didn't get to see everything. There was a lot of stuff I didn't see.
Did you have any good food?
Not really. The food I wasn't a huge fan of it. But, the person I was visiting also isn't really much of a foodie. At least she wasn't at the time. So who knows? But yeah, stay there a week. You won't be disappointed. It's absolutely great.
I got good food.
So yeah, do you have any budget tips, Jared? I mean, the only budget tips I have for Paris is avoid the super touristy areas, which is kind of a common sense budget tip for any experienced traveler out there.
Yes, I do have budget tips. And also, I think we have a budget tip that we've discovered for like a new mantra for this podcast. Don't go to souvenir shops. Don't go to gift shops and buy anything. I mean, Paris is one of the greatest examples of that. Be careful of your surroundings. It seems very nice. Everyone seems very happy in Paris. But you can get got easily. But also, soak it in. Like, it is gorgeous,
Absolutely.
If you disregard the tourist, if possible, you're surrounded by
good luck with that.
culture. Something I don't buy about Paris is the romance thing, I think. But I've also never been there in a romantic situation.
Not until you and I go.
You know what, Chad? I like the way you think. And I take back my previous comment, and we'll revisit that in a couple of years probably when we go to Paris.
There we go.
And I'm like, you know what? The Untranslatable podcast is getting married.
That's right. Paris would be the place to do it. That's for sure. Yeah. Well, do you have anything else to add? I mean, really, you could talk about Paris for hours, but I would say the key thing is do a lot of research online before you go and check out a lot of the cooler stuff outside of the first quarter. I mean, you can see a lot of great things there. Don't get me wrong, and you should visit it, but don't. Unless that's what you really want to do, but otherwise don't spend all your time in that one place. I mean, we've said this on a lot of different travel tips but the beauty of visiting these places is to branch out and really get a good view of the entire city, and you can't do that if you're only in the first quarter.
I agree with you, but it's sort of like when we talk about, as you mentioned, we mentioned this with any big city, but it's like you can see the quote-unquote tourist attractions. I mean, Paris will take a long time just because how many there are. Find the tourist attractions that interest you. But then, for example, I lived in Philadelphia before I left, but I lived in the neighborhood of Northern Liberties, quote-unquote, Fishtown, which is like right outside of the major city. And just within that, there was a whole sort of scene and culture going on. And so you could theoretically see the sort of the hot spots and then leave and experience the actual sort of bar or club culture outside of the actual city. And I think Paris is the same thing.
Absolutely.
And, I actually went to one of those, if you guys listen to the Untranslatable podcast, outside of travel tips, which you obviously do, you'll remember a recent episode about teacher horror stories. And I mentioned a teacher that got into a little bit of a tizzy and ended up hugging a pole outside of a club. That club was off of the Champs-Elysees. And it was a cool experience to go into a club off of the Champs-Elysees in theory. It was cool to be there because I was surrounded by people, my college friends in Paris. Just that sort of feeling in my head. I was like, this is crazy.
Right.
But outside of that, nah. It's not worth it.
Yeah.
It's not worth it. You're going to be the person that got drunk on the Champs-Elysees street, or you're just going to it's just going to be like a generic club experience. And I think that you just have to find the city that most interests you. Not the city.
The sites, the things to do.
How do you say it? Give it to me again.
Arrondissement.
There we go. Thank you.
Ooh, feels good saying that. Arrondissement. Anyways.
That's all I got.
Right.
I'm sorry.
So we
coming in hot.
hope this has been a helpful episode for you all. As we mentioned, we are definitely not. I feel like out of all the travel tips we've done so far, other than the Philly one, although I knew Jared had that one covered, I'm definitely not an expert on Paris, but it is a beautiful city. Definitely worth a visit. Let us know what.
But I'll say this. I enjoy that it's like a sort of a tourist city that everyone is aware of. And we've both been there at least once. And I think it's fun to do travel tips where we give our opinion on it. And I think it's also fun and useful to not always do a travel tips that's just like, oh, it's wonderful. See this, and this, and you'll have the greatest time in your life.
That's true, because it's not always very realistic of how traveling really is. But anyways, let us know what you like about Paris or what you enjoy doing or seeing there at untranslatablepodcast@gmail.com. Or you can slide into our DMs on Twitter if that is your preferred mode of communication, Untranslatable1. Check out our Instagram, Untranslatable Podcast, and also our website, untranslatablepodcast.com, for all sorts of great stuff. We'd really appreciate it. And lastly, please let us know what we can do to make this podcast better. Give us reviews. 5 stars are the appreciated number of stars on iTunes and Stitcher. So we hope you've enjoyed. And as they say in Paris, au revoir. And as we say here at the Untranslatable Podcast, bon voyage, děkujeme a muchas gracias.